If you ever find yourself at a New Year's Eve party where the host keeps checking their watch every few minutes, pay attention to what they're counting down to, because it might not be midnight. I wish someone had told me that before December 31st, 2022. I'm a data analyst. I work with numbers, patterns, statistics. I don't believe in curses or supernatural countdowns or any of that. At least, I didn't. Not until I spent New Year's Eve at the Ashwood Resort in the Catskill Mountains and learned that some traditions aren't celebrations, they're containment protocols. And when they fail, well, you'll see what I mean. The Ashwood Resort has been hosting New Year's Eve galas since 1928. That's what the brochure said. 94 consecutive years of champagne, dancing, and watching the ball drop on their vintage projection screen in the grand ballroom. My girlfriend Maya found the deal online. $200 a person for an all-inclusive New Year's package. Accommodation, dinner, open bar, breakfast the next morning. For a historic resort, that seemed impossibly cheap. It's because they're renovating in the spring, Maya said, showing me her phone. They're trying to fill rooms before they close for 6 months. Look at this place. It's gorgeous. She was right. The photos showed a sprawling stone building nestled in the mountains, all dark wood and Art Deco fixtures, the kind of place that screamed old money and jazz-age elegance. Plus, she added, we need this. When's the last time we actually went somewhere together? She had a point. Between my 60-hour work weeks and her nursing shifts, we'd barely seen each other in months. A romantic New Year's getaway sounded perfect. I booked it that afternoon. We arrived at the Ashwood on December 30th around 3 in the afternoon. The drive up had been beautiful. Winding mountain roads, snow-dusted pine trees, that crisp winter air that makes everything feel clean and possible. The resort looked even better in person. 3 stories of gray stone and tall windows, with a circular driveway leading to an entrance flanked by Art Deco lampposts. Smoke curled from multiple chimneys. Through the windows, I could see warm light and people moving around inside. This is amazing, Maya breathed as we pulled up. A valet took our car. A bellhop grabbed our bags. We were ushered inside by a woman in her 60s wearing an elegant black dress and a name tag that read, Mrs. Ashwood, General Manager. Welcome, welcome, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You must be the Hendersons. That's us, Maya said. This place is incredible. Thank you. The Ashwood has been in my family for 3 generations. Mrs. Ashwood's smile tightened slightly. I do hope you'll enjoy your stay. The gala tomorrow evening begins at 8 p.m. sharp. I trust you've read the guidelines we emailed? I nodded, though truthfully I'd only skimmed them. Standard resort stuff, dress code, meal times, checkout procedures. Wonderful. Now, there is one house rule I must emphasize. Her tone shifted, became formal, almost rehearsed. Once the New Year's celebration begins at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening, all guests must remain in the ballroom until after midnight. No exceptions. Maya and I exchanged glances. The entire time? I asked. Yes. The building undergoes certain maintenance procedures during the celebration. For safety reasons, the ballroom is the only secure area during that window. She handed us our room keys, actual metal keys, not cards. I'm sure you understand. Not really, but we nodded anyway. Mrs. Ashwood's smile returned. Excellent. Your room is 207, second floor, east wing. Dinner is served in the dining room from 6 to 9. Enjoy your evening. Our room was perfect. High ceilings, a 4-poster bed, a clawfoot tub in the bathroom. The kind of place that felt expensive, even though we'd gotten it cheap. I could get used to this, Maya said, flopping onto the bed. I walked to the window. Our room faced the forest behind the resort, dense pines stretching up the mountain, already dark with evening shadows despite it being only 4 p.m. Something moved out there, just a flicker at the edge of my vision. I pressed closer to the glass, trying to see. What is it? Maya asked. Thought I saw, I don't know, probably just a deer. But it hadn't moved like a deer. It had moved like someone running, fast, desperate. Then again, at that distance, in that light, I could have been seeing anything. Dinner that evening was in a dining room that could have been pulled from the 1920s. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, servers in period-appropriate uniforms. About 30 other guests were scattered across the room, mostly couples in their 30s and 40s, a few older folks, one family with teenage kids. Everyone seemed happy, relaxed, except Mrs. Ashwood, who stood near the entrance watching, always watching, that same tight smile on her face. "She's intense," Maya whispered. "Old school hospitality," I said. "My grandmother was like that. Everything had to be perfect." We ate slowly, enjoying the food and wine, talked about our plans for the coming year. Maya wanted to apply for a position in the ICU. I was considering a job offer from a competitor that would mean better hours, normal couple stuff, future stuff. Around 9 p.m., as we were finishing dessert, one of the other guests, a man in his 50s with graying hair, stood up abruptly. "I need some air," he announced to his wife. "I'll be on the terrace." He walked toward the French doors that led outside. Mrs. Ashwood materialized in front of him so quickly it was almost supernatural. "I'm afraid the terrace is closed for the evening, Mr. Chen." "I just need 5 minutes." "The terrace is closed." Her voice had gone cold, absolute. "I must insist you remain indoors." Mr. Chen stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly and returned to his table. The room had gone very quiet. Mrs. Ashwood's smile returned. "I apologize for the inconvenience. As I mentioned, we're conducting maintenance. Safety first as always." The conversation resumed, but something had shifted. I noticed other guests glancing at the windows, at the doors, like they were suddenly aware they couldn't leave. That night, I couldn't sleep. Maya was out cold beside me, but my mind kept circling back to that moment with Mr. Chen, the way Mrs. Ashwood had moved, the way she'd said, "I must insist," like she was enforcing a rule that went beyond hospitality. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up and went to the window. The forest was dark. No moon tonight, just endless black between the trees. Then I saw the light, a small flickering glow deep in the woods, moving slowly from left to right across my field of vision. A flashlight. Someone was out there walking through the forest at 2 a.m. As I watched, the light stopped. Then it started moving faster, erratic, like whoever was holding it was running. The light jerked up, down, spun in circles, then it went out. Just gone. I stood at that window for 20 minutes, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. Maya and I spent New Year's Eve day exploring the resort, the library with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and rolling ladders, the conservatory full of plants that had no business thriving in winter, the game room with its antique billiards table and chess sets. But there were areas we couldn't access, doors marked staff only or under renovation, more than seemed normal for a functioning resort. "Have you noticed there's no cell service here?" Maya asked around noon. I checked my phone. She was right. No bars, no Wi-Fi either, despite the resort supposedly having it. "Mountains," I said. "Probably just spotty coverage." "Maybe." But she looked uneasy. We weren't the only ones exploring. I kept seeing other guests wandering the halls, testing doors, peering into windows, like everyone was suddenly aware that the resort was keeping secrets. Around 3 p.m., I found Mr. Chen in the library, pulling books off shelves and opening them. "Looking for something?" I asked. He jumped, then laughed nervously. "Sorry, thought maybe there'd be I don't know, information about this place, its history." "Find anything?" "No. Every book about the Ashwood specifically is gone. See?" He gestured to a section of shelves. "There are gaps, like someone removed them." I looked. He was right. Spaces between books that were too neat to be accidental, deliberate removals. "Why would they do that?" Maya asked from behind me. Mr. Chen shrugged. "Maybe they don't want us knowing what happened here." "What do you mean, what happened here?" He met my eyes. "You don't spend 94 years hosting the exact same party without a reason. This isn't tradition, it's routine. And routines exist because something bad happens when you break them." 8 p.m. The ballroom was stunning. Art Deco magnificence, geometric patterns in the floor, gold fixtures, a massive chandelier, and that vintage projection screen showing a live feed of Times Square preparing for the ball drop. All 30-something guests were required to attend. Mandatory fun. Mrs. Ashwood stood at the entrance as we filed in, checking us off a list, making sure everyone was accounted for. Once you're inside, please don't attempt to leave until after midnight, she reminded each person. The doors will be locked for your safety. Locked? A woman asked. What if there's an emergency? There won't be. Mrs. Ashwood's smile was brittle. There hasn't been in 93 years. Just remain in the ballroom, enjoy the festivities, and everything will be fine. I caught Mr. Chen's eye across the room. He looked grim. At 8:05, Mrs. Ashwood entered the ballroom herself. She pulled the heavy double doors shut behind her. I heard the lock click. The first hour was normal. Appetizers circulated. The bar was open. A small band played swing music from a stage in the corner. People danced, laughed, drank champagne. But Mrs. Ashwood stood near the doors the entire time, not mingling, not celebrating, just standing watch. At 9 p.m., she checked her watch. At 9:15, she checked it again. She was counting down to something, and it wasn't midnight. Around 9:30, the lights flickered, just once, barely noticeable. But Mrs. Ashwood's face went pale. She crossed the room quickly to a small door marked Staff Only in the corner, unlocked it with a key from her pocket, disappeared inside. Maya grabbed my arm. What was that about? I don't know. Mrs. Ashwood emerged 2 minutes later. She'd composed herself, but I could see sweat on her forehead despite the cool room temperature. She checked her watch again, nodded to herself. Then she addressed the room, her voice cutting through the music. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying yourselves. I want to remind you that we're now locked in for your safety until 12:05 a.m. Please, do not attempt to open the doors or leave the ballroom under any circumstances. Why 12:05? Someone called out. Why not just midnight? The maintenance protocols run until 12:05 exactly. After that, you're free to return to your rooms. Her smile was strained. I assure you it's for your own protection. Protection from what, she didn't say. 10 p.m. The projection screen showed Times Square. 2 hours until midnight. The crowd there was massive, everyone bundled in winter coats waiting for the ball to drop. Here in the ballroom, the party continued. But there was an edge to it now. People drinking faster, laughing louder, trying too hard to enjoy themselves. Mrs. Ashwood checked her watch every few minutes. At 10:30, we heard it. A sound from somewhere in the building, distant but distinct. Footsteps, running footsteps, dozens of them, maybe more, coming from above us, from the 3rd floor. Everyone stopped dancing, stopped talking, stopped pretending everything was normal. The footsteps thundered across the ceiling, back and forth, back and forth. Then they stopped at once. Silence. What the hell was that? Mr. Chen demanded, walking toward Mrs. Ashwood. Maintenance, she said quickly. As I explained, that wasn't maintenance, that was people. A lot of people. Please return to the festivities, Mr. Chen. There's no one else staying here tonight except us. You said so yourself. So who the hell is running around up there? Mrs. Ashwood's composure cracked. I said, return to the festivities. Tell us what's happening. She stared at him. Then, very quietly, nothing is happening. Nothing will happen. As long as everyone stays in this room until 12:05, nothing will happen. And if we don't? I found myself asking. She looked at me. Her eyes were exhausted, ancient. Then what happened 94 years ago happens again. Maya pulled me aside. We need to leave. The doors are locked. Then we break a window, get to the car, drive away. Maya, something is really wrong here. You feel it too. I can see it on your face. She was right. Every instinct I had was screaming danger. But before I could respond, the lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for several seconds before returning to normal. And in that darkness, I heard something new. Whispers. coming from the walls, from the ceiling, from everywhere and nowhere, counting. Thousands of voices, all counting in perfect synchronization. 53, 54, 55. The lights came back on. The whispers stopped. Mrs. Ashwood was leaning against the door, eyes closed, breathing hard. On the projection screen, Times Square showed 11 p.m., 1 hour until midnight. But the whispers had been counting, and they weren't at 3,600 for an hour countdown. They were much, much higher. 11:15 p.m. The temperature in the ballroom had dropped noticeably. I could see my breath. Mrs. Ashwood had given up pretending. She sat in a chair near the doors, head in her hands, checking her watch compulsively. Mr. Chen stood in front of her. "Tell us. We deserve to know." She looked up. Her eyes were red. "You really want to know?" "Yes." She laughed, a broken sound. 1928, New Year's Eve. My grandfather hosted a gala, just like this one, over 200 guests. The ballroom had gone silent, everyone listening. At 11 p.m., someone opened the doors. A guest who didn't want to follow the rules, didn't understand why they had to stay inside. She swallowed hard. What came in? My grandfather never found the words to describe it, only that it was vast and hungry, and it moved through the building, consuming everything in its path. "That's insane," someone said. "Is it?" Mrs. Ashwood gestured to the ceiling. "You heard them, the footsteps, the counting. They're still here, all of them, every guest from 94 years ago. They didn't die. They were taken, absorbed. And now they exist in the spaces between spaces, in the walls, in the floors, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Maya whispered. "For midnight. For the moment when the year changes and the barriers are thinnest. That's when they can cross back. That's when they can be whole again." She stood, unsteady. "My grandfather made a deal, a containment. Every New Year's Eve, we give them this echo. We lock everyone in the ballroom. We let them remember what it was to celebrate, to be human. We give them a few hours of vicarious existence through us." "And in return?" I asked. "In return, they don't break through. They don't consume. They just watch, experience. And when 12:05 comes and the moment is past, they return to wherever they exist between the walls." She checked her watch. 11:30. "But if someone leaves, if someone breaks the containment, they interpret it as an invitation, and they come through, all of them." Nobody spoke. On the projection screen, the Times Square countdown showed 30 minutes to midnight. Around us, the temperature continued to drop. Ice was forming on the windows now, actual frost spreading across the glass in fractal patterns. "So we just wait?" Maya asked. Mrs. Ashwood nodded. 35 more minutes, then it's over. Then we're safe for another year." "And the person in the woods?" I said. "Last night, I saw someone out there with a flashlight." Her face crumpled. "My son, he didn't believe me. Thought I was crazy. Went outside to prove there was nothing to fear." "What happened to him?" "I don't know. He didn't come back." The whispers started again, louder this time. 7,126. 7,127. They were counting in seconds. I did the math. 7,100 seconds was just under 2 hours. They'd been counting since 10 p.m., counting down to midnight. 11:45, 15 minutes. The walls were vibrating now. A low-frequency hum that I felt in my bones more than heard. The whispers had become a roar. Thousands of voices overlapping, counting, always counting. 8,043, 8,044. The chandelier swayed, crystals tinkling against each other. Maya held my hand so tight I lost feeling in my fingers. And then, the teenage boy from the family of 4 did something stupid. He walked to the French windows on the far side of the ballroom, the ones that led to the terrace. "Don't!" Mrs. Ashwood screamed, but he was already turning the handle. "There's nothing out there. You're all crazy." He pushed the window open. Cold air rushed in. Not normal cold, Arctic cold, the kind that burns skin on contact. And behind that air, oh God, behind that air came something else. I can't describe what we saw. Not really. The human brain isn't equipped to process something that exists in more dimensions than we can perceive. But I'll try. Imagine shadows. Hundreds of them, thousands, all human-shaped but wrong. Too tall, too thin. Limbs bent at angles that violated geometry. They poured through that window like liquid darkness, moving across the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Not walking, flowing. And they were screaming. High-pitched wails that might have been joy or agony or both. The teenage boy tried to run. He made it 3 steps before they reached him. He didn't die. That would have been mercy. He just flattened. Like a 3-dimensional object suddenly forced into 2 dimensions. One moment he was a person, the next he was pressed against the wall, still moving, still trying to scream, but now part of the surface itself. His parents rushed forward. The shadows took them too, pulled them into the walls beside their son. "Close it!" Mrs. Ashwood was screaming. "Close the window!" But the shadows were everywhere now. The ballroom had become a nightmare of moving darkness and screaming voices, and people being absorbed into surfaces they'd never escape from. Mr. Chen made it to the window, grabbed the frame. A shadow touched his shoulder. He looked at me. Our eyes met. Then he was gone. Spread across the window glass like a photograph. Still conscious, still aware, still trapped. Maya and I ran, not toward the locked doors, toward the staff-only door Mrs. Ashwood had used earlier. The shadows were faster. They reached for us, cold fingers that weren't fingers brushing against my back. Maya yanked the door open. We threw ourselves through, slammed it behind us. We were in a narrow stairwell, service stairs leading down. Behind us, the door bulged inward, the shadows pressing against it, testing it. "Go!" Maya screamed. We ran down past the first floor, down into a basement I didn't know existed. Behind us, the door splintered. Shadows poured through. The basement was a maze of hallways, old storage areas, rooms full of furniture covered in sheets. We ran blindly, turned left, right, left again, found a heavy metal door, some kind of old furnace room, pulled it open, threw ourselves inside, used our combined weight to swing it shut. There was a deadbolt. I turned it with shaking hands, then we collapsed against the far wall, gasping. In the darkness of the furnace room, Maya's phone screen provided the only light, no service. But the clock worked. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes until midnight. 3 minutes until the barriers were thinnest. 3 minutes to survive. We could hear them in the hallway outside, moving, searching, those impossible voices counting down in perfect synchronization. 8,640, 8,641. Maya was crying. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. The door handle rattled. Something pushed against it, testing the lock. 8,700. 2 minutes. The metal door began to frost over, ice spreading across its surface from the other side. 8,760. 1 minute. The voices grew louder, more insistent, desperate. They knew the moment was almost here. Maya and I held each other in the darkness, watching the clock on her phone. 11:59 and 30 seconds. The door handle turned. The deadbolt held, but barely. 40 seconds. Something slammed against the door. The whole frame shook. 50 seconds. Cracks appeared in the metal, spreading like veins. 55 seconds. The counting reached a fever pitch. 1 voice, 1,000 voices, 1,000,000. 8,999, 9,000. Midnight. Everything stopped. The slamming, the rattling, the voices. Total silence. Maya and I didn't move, didn't breathe. Seconds passed. Then, faintly from far above us, we heard it. Times Square, the countdown, people cheering. "Happy New Year," someone screamed, muffled by distance and walls. And just like that, it was over. The frost on the door began to melt, water dripping down the metal. The temperature returned to normal. The pressure, the feeling of being watched by something vast and terrible, lifted. Maya checked her phone. 12:01 a.m. 4 more minutes until the containment was supposed to end at 12:05. We waited. At 12:06 a.m. exactly, I unlocked the deadbolt. The hallway outside was empty. No shadows, no movement. Just an ordinary basement hallway in an old resort. We found our way back upstairs. The ballroom doors stood open now. Inside, Mrs. Ashwood sat alone in the center of the room. The chandelier cast pools of light around her. Everything else was dim. The other guests were gone, all of them. The walls were covered in shapes, human-shaped impressions, dozens of them, pressed into the surface like bas-relief sculptures, and they were moving. Slightly. Breathing maybe, if something trapped in a wall could breathe. Mrs. Ashwood looked up as we entered. Her face was hollow. "You survived." "What happened to them?" Maya whispered. "They're part of it now, part of the building. They'll exist here between the walls until next New Year's Eve, and then they'll watch through new guests, experience the celebration through new people." She stood slowly. "That's the deal. The containment. Some years everyone makes it. Some years." She gestured to the walls. "We're leaving," I said. "Yes, you should." She walked to the entrance. "Your car keys are with the valet. Your belongings are packed. I took the liberty while you were hiding." "You knew we'd survive?" "I knew someone would. Someone always does. Otherwise, there'd be no one to tell the story, no one to make sure we have guests next year." Her smile was terrible. "The Ashwood always has a New Year's gala, 95 years and counting. We'll send you an invitation for next year, a discount even. Many survivors come back. It's cheaper that way." "We'll never come back." "Maybe, but you'll remember. Every New Year's Eve for the rest of your life, you'll remember. And you'll wonder, are they still there? Those people in the walls? Are they still counting down to midnight?" She handed me our car keys. "Happy New Year," she said. We drove away at 12:45 a.m. Didn't speak, didn't look back. Maya broke up with me 6 weeks later. Said she couldn't be with someone who reminded her of that night. I understand. But Mrs. Ashwood was right about one thing. Every New Year's Eve, I remember. I check my watch compulsively as midnight approaches, count down the seconds, and sometimes, late at night when I'm alone, I hear whispers in my walls, counting, always counting, waiting for the barriers to thin again, waiting for their moment to cross back over. The smell hit me first. That's the thing nobody tells you about ancient traditions. It's the smell you remember. Copper and earth and something else, something wrong. I'm a folklore researcher. I spent 6 years getting my PhD studying New Year's traditions across cultures. I deal in academic analysis, historical documentation, peer-reviewed sources. What I'm about to tell you shouldn't be possible. But I have the scars to prove it happened. And I have the photographs. This is about first footing. An old Scottish tradition where the first person to cross your threshold after midnight on New Year's determines your luck for the coming year. Dark-haired men are lucky. Fair-haired women are unlucky. The first footer should bring gifts: coal, salt, whiskey, bread, simple folklore, harmless superstition. Except in Braywick, Scotland, they take it seriously. And in Braywick, breaking the rules has consequences. I arrived in Braywick on December 29th, 2023. A village of maybe 300 people clinging to the Scottish coast, all gray stone cottages and narrow streets that hadn't changed in 2 centuries. I was there researching my book on New Year traditions. Braywick supposedly maintained one of the most authentic first-footing practices in Scotland, unchanged since the 1700s. Perfect for my research. The village had one inn, the Selkie's Rest, run by a woman named Moira who looked about 60, with iron-gray hair and eyes that assessed me the moment I walked through the door. "You're the researcher," she said, not a question. "Dr. Sarah Chen, thank you for accommodating me on such short notice. We don't get many visitors this time of year. Most folk know better." She handed me a key. "Room 4, upstairs. Breakfast is at 8. I'm looking forward to observing your first footing tradition. I understand you follow the old ways quite strictly." Something flickered across her face. "Aye, we follow them, and we expect guests to do the same. Of course, I'm here to document, not interfere." "See that you don't." She turned away. "Rules exist for reasons, Dr. Chen, even if those reasons seem like superstition to educated folk like yourself. I spent December 30th interviewing villagers. Most were welcoming enough, if guarded. They explained the tradition proudly. At midnight on New Year's Eve, every household would lock their doors and wait. The first person to knock and enter after the bells struck 12 would determine the family's fortune for the year ahead. A dark-haired man was ideal. Tall, healthy, carrying the traditional gifts. He'd enter, place coal on the fire, set his gifts on the table, share a dram of whiskey with the household, then leave through the back door. Only then could he enter another house. Fair-haired visitors, women, or empty-handed guests were bad luck and wouldn't be admitted. "And if the wrong person arrives first?" I asked an elderly man named Callum. His expression darkened. "Then you don't open the door. You wait for the right one." "But what if you don't open the door?" He looked at me hard. "Not until the right one comes, no matter how long it takes." I made notes. Fascinating how seriously they took it. Clear example of tradition becoming social pressure, becoming unquestionable rule. "Has anyone ever opened the door for the wrong visitor?" I asked. Callum stood. "No one's been that foolish in my lifetime, nor in my father's, and for good reason." He left before I could ask what that reason was. That evening, I had dinner at the village's only pub, the Drowned Bell. Dark wood, low ceilings, a peat fire burning in the hearth. Moira was there, along with a dozen other villagers. Everyone seemed tense, anticipatory. "Big night tomorrow," I said to the bartender, a young woman named Fiona. "Aye, the biggest." She poured my whiskey with shaking hands. "You seem nervous." "It's a lot of pressure, being a first footer. Last year my brother Malcolm did it for most of the houses. Dark hair, strong back, follows the rules. This year," she trailed off. "This year? He moved to Edinburgh 3 months ago, so we're short a proper first footer. Makes everyone anxious." Across the room, I noticed a man sitting alone in the corner. Red hair, pale skin, slumped posture. He was watching the other villagers with an expression I couldn't quite read. Resentment, maybe, or anger. "Who's that?" I asked Fiona. She glanced over. Her face hardened. "Rory. Well, he's unlucky. Red hair, you see. No one wants him first footing their door. His family's cottage is always last to be visited. Sometimes they wait until 3 or 4 in the morning before Malcolm would finally make his rounds there." "That seems cruel." "It's tradition. Rules are rules." I watched Rory drain his glass and stand. He made eye contact with me for just a moment. His expression was dark. Then he left the pub, door slamming behind him. December 31st, New Year's Eve. The village was quieter than usual, most people staying inside, preparing. I spent the day photographing the cottages, documenting the layout of the village, planning my observation route for the evening. Around 4 p.m., I stopped by Moira's office at the inn to ask about logistics. Where would be the best place to observe the tradition tonight? I don't want to intrude, but I need to document. "You'll stay in your room." Her tone was flat, absolute. "Excuse me?" "You'll stay in your room after 10 p.m. You'll lock your door. You will not open it, no matter who knocks or what you hear, until after sunrise tomorrow morning." I blinked. I'm here to research. I need to observe. "You'll observe from your window if you must, but you will not leave your room. You will not open your door. Am I making myself clear?" "Moira, I appreciate your concern, but I'm a professional researcher. I'm not going to interfere with—" She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was iron. "Listen to me very carefully. This is not a quaint folk custom. This is not something for you to document and analyze and explain away in your university office. This is survival. These rules were written in blood, and they're maintained in fear, and you will follow them, or I will personally drive you to the ferry tonight." I pulled my hand back. You're serious. Deadly. We stared at each other. Fine, I said. I'll stay in my room. She relaxed slightly. Good. I'll bring you dinner at 9. After that, lock your door. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, no matter who claims they need help, you stay inside until dawn. Why? What happens? She studied my face for a long moment. You really want to know? Yes. Then look up the census records for Braywick. 1973, New Year's, count the population, then look at 1974. She left before I could ask more. I found the records in the village's small historical society archive. Took me 2 hours of digging through boxes, but I found them. 1973. Braywick population, 412. 1974. Braywick population, 361. 51 people, gone in 1 year. No explanation, no plague, no disaster, no mass migration, just gone. And all the deaths occurred on the same date, January 1st, 1973. I found a newspaper clipping from that time, the Aberdeen Press. Small article, page 6. Tragedy in Braywick. 51 residents of the coastal village of Braywick were found dead on New Year's Day, authorities report. The deaths occurred throughout the village in multiple homes. Cause of death remains under investigation, though preliminary reports suggest possible carbon monoxide poisoning. The village's surviving population is cooperating with authorities. Carbon monoxide, that was the official story. But I found another clipping, smaller, from a local paper that no longer existed. This one included a quote from a survivor, an elderly woman whose name had been redacted. They opened their doors. That's what killed them. They opened their doors to the wrong one, and he came in, and he took what he was owed. We learned. We learned to keep the rules. We learned to wait for the right one, no matter how long it takes. 9 p.m. Moira brought my dinner. Stew and bread. She set it on my desk without meeting my eyes. Remember what I told you. I remember. I mean it, Dr. Chen. No matter what you hear, no matter what you think you see, you stay in this room until dawn. What am I going to hear? She paused at the door. The truth about traditions, about why some rules aren't really rules. They're instructions, survival guides. Moira. Happy New Year, Dr. Chen. She left. I locked the door behind her. Then I set up my camera on the windowsill. Night vision enabled, recording continuously. If I couldn't observe in person, I'd document from here. My room faced the village square. From my window, I could see a dozen cottages, the pub, the small church at the far end. At 10 p.m., the lights in the cottages went out, all of them, simultaneously. The village went dark. Only the street lamps remained, casting pools of yellow light across the empty square. I checked my watch. 2 hours until midnight, 11 p.m. Nothing had changed. The village remained dark and silent. Then I saw movement. A figure walking across the square, tall, dark-haired, carrying a bag, the first footer, making his preparations. He stopped at the church steps, set down his bag, pulled out items. Coal, I thought, salt, a bottle. He was organizing his gifts, getting ready for the rounds. As I watched, another figure emerged from a side street, Rory, the red-haired man from the pub. He approached the first footer. They spoke. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the body language, argument, escalating. The first footer pushed Rory back, pointed toward one of the cottages, telling him to leave. Rory shoved him harder. They fought, brief, violent. When it ended, the first footer was on the ground, not moving. Rory stood over him for a long moment. Then he picked up the bag of gifts, turned, looked directly at my window. Even from this distance, I could see his smile. He knew I was watching. He wanted me to see. 11:30 p.m. Rory walked to the first cottage, stood at the door, waiting. The village remained silent, dark. I pressed my face to the glass, trying to see details. The camera recorded everything, but I needed to understand what I was witnessing. 11:45. Rory still stood at that door, patient, the bag at his feet. Inside the cottage, I saw a flicker of light. Someone had lit a candle. They were waiting, preparing for the right first footer to knock. They didn't know he was already there. Wrong hair, wrong person, wrong everything. 11:59. Rory raised his fist. Midnight. Church bells rang. 12 clear notes echoing across the village. Rory knocked 3 times, sharp, demanding. Inside the cottage, nothing moved. The candlelight wavered. They were following the rules. Don't open for the wrong one. Wait for the right visitor. Rory knocked again, harder. "Happy New Year," he called out. His voice carried across the silent square. "I've brought gifts. Coal for the fire, salt for the hearth, whiskey to warm you." The candle moved. Someone approaching the door. "No, no, don't open it," I wanted to shout, to warn them. But I was 2 stories up, my window locked, and I'd promised to stay inside. The cottage door opened. What happened next? I can barely describe it. The thing that walked into that cottage wasn't Rory anymore. It was tall, too tall. Its limbs were too long, joints bending backward as it moved. The red hair had become something else, something that moved independently, like flames or tentacles. And its mouth. God. Its mouth opened wider than any human mouth should, showing rows of teeth that went back and back into impossible depths. The family inside screamed. The screaming stopped very quickly. Rory, or the thing wearing Rory's shape, emerged 3 minutes later. The bag of gifts was fuller now, heavier. It moved to the next cottage, knocked. "Happy New Year, I've brought gifts." This household was smarter. They didn't open. The cottage remained dark and silent. Rory stood there for 5 minutes, 10, 15. Then it moved to the next house, knocked again. This door opened. Either they hadn't seen what happened at the first cottage, or they thought they had no choice but to follow tradition. More screaming, brief, terrible. Rory emerged, the bag fuller still. 12:30 a.m. Rory had visited 5 cottages. 3 had opened their doors. 3 families were gone now, taken. The thing moved methodically, patient. It had all night. I grabbed my phone, no signal. Tried the landline in my room, dead. Of course they'd cut the communications, of course. I was trapped in this room, watching a massacre, unable to help, unable to do anything but document. My camera kept recording, cold, clinical, professional detachment in the face of horror. Below me, Rory approached another door. This one didn't open. The household stayed dark, stayed silent. After 20 minutes, Rory moved on. It was learning. The thing was learning which households would open their doors and which wouldn't. It was optimizing its route. 1 a.m. I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Slow, heavy, ascending the stairs. They stopped outside my door. A knock. 3 times. "Dr. Chen?" Rory's voice, friendly, concerned. "Dr. Chen, are you awake? There's been a terrible accident in the square. I need your help. Medical emergency." I pressed myself against the far wall. Didn't breathe. "Please, Dr. Chen. A man is dying. You're the only outsider here, the only one who might have medical training. Please open the door." My hand moved toward the lock. Muscle memory. The instinct to help. Then I remembered Moira's words. No matter who claims they need help. I pulled my hand back. "Dr. Chen." The voice changed, became angry. "I know you're in there. I know you're watching. I saw your camera, your flash." The door handle rattled. "You're documenting this, aren't you? Adding it to your research? Another quaint tradition, another piece of folklore to explain and dissect and publish." The door shook, something heavy slamming against it. "Let me in, Dr. Chen. I have gifts. I have so many gifts now. I'd love to share them with you." SLAM. The door cracked, wood splintering. I grabbed the heaviest piece of furniture, a chair, and shoved it against the door. SLAM. The chair held, barely. You can't stay in there forever. Eventually, you'll have to open the door. Eventually, you'll need food, water, bathroom, and I'm patient. I have until dawn. That's the rule, you see. I can only visit until sunrise. But until then, SLAM. I have all the time in the world. 1:30 a.m. The slamming had stopped. Rory was gone from my door, but I could see him below, moving through the square again, visiting more cottages. 10 families had opened their doors now, 10 households gone. The surviving villagers huddled in their dark cottages, praying for dawn, praying they'd be passed over. My camera captured everything, the methodical progression, the screams that cut off too quickly, the way Rory's shadow grew longer with each house he visited, more substantial, more real. At 2 a.m., it returned to my door. This time, it didn't knock. It didn't threaten. It whispered. "Do you know what I am, Dr. Chen? Do you know why they fear me?" I didn't answer. I'm the consequence, the price, the thing that happens when the rules break down, when people stop believing, when they start thinking of tradition as quaint performance rather than necessary protection. Its voice was coming from everywhere, the walls, the floor, the ceiling. For 300 years, they've kept me out. 300 years of strict observation, of following the rules exactly, of never opening the door to the wrong one. But this year they got lazy. They let their first footer move away. They didn't prepare a replacement. They thought perhaps that 1 year wouldn't matter, that they could be flexible. The door cracked further. They were wrong. 3 a.m. Rory had visited every cottage in the village. 16 families had opened their doors. 16 households were gone. The survivors remained barricaded, silent, waiting for dawn. My door was barely holding. The chair had broken. I'd piled everything I could against it, dresser, nightstand, mattress. It wouldn't be enough if Rory really wanted in. But something was holding it back, some rule I didn't understand. Just 3 more hours, I whispered to myself. 3 more hours until sunrise. Outside, Rory stood in the center of the square. The bag it carried was enormous now, bulging, moving. It looked up at my window. "You've documented everything, haven't you? Every moment, every death, every failure of will." I said nothing. Good. That's important. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to tell the story, to warn others, to explain why the rules must be followed. It smiled. That terrible, impossible smile. "You'll publish your findings, Dr. Chen. You'll write about Brewick and its tragic new year, and people will read it and think, how fascinating and how primitive, and they'll never, ever understand that the rules they mock are the only things keeping them safe." Because I'm everywhere, Dr. Chen. Every culture, every tradition, every New Year's ritual from Times Square to Tokyo. We're all there, waiting, hoping someone will break the rules, praying someone will open their door to the wrong one. 4 a.m. The bag Rory carried began to split. Too full, too heavy. Things spilled out, not objects, not coal or salt or whiskey. People, or what was left of them. They moved like sleepwalkers, empty-eyed, skin gray, moving in that same wrong way Rory moved. 16 new things that looked almost human. They spread across the village, stood at doorways, knocked. "Happy New Year, we've brought gifts." 5 a.m. 1 hour until sunrise. More doors had opened. 20 households now, 20 families taken, 20 new things standing in the square. The survivors were cracking. Some from fear, some from exhaustion, some from the terrible, relentless knocking that wouldn't stop. Below my window, an elderly woman stumbled out of her cottage. She'd broken, couldn't take it anymore. She walked to the center of the square, faced the things. "Take me," she said. "Just take me. Let the others survive." Rory walked to her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Bless you," it said gently. "Bless you for your sacrifice." Then it opened its mouth and consumed her, not physically, spiritually. I watched her soul being pulled from her body through some impossible process, drawn into that cavernous throat. Her body crumpled, empty. The thing wearing Rory smiled at me. 1 hour, Dr. Chen. Can you last 1 more hour? 5:30 a.m. My door gave way. The entire frame splintered, wood and plaster falling inward. But the sun was coming. I could see the horizon lightening. Just 30 minutes. Rory stood in the doorway. Behind it, dozens of the things. All the taken villagers, all watching with empty eyes. "Last chance," Rory said. "Open your door properly. Invite me in. Accept me as your first footer." "No." "Then I'll take you anyway. Rules don't apply to outsiders who witness but don't believe." It stepped into my room. I grabbed my camera, the only weapon I had. "I believe," I said. "I believe. I'm a witness. I'm telling the story. That's my role. That's why I'm here." Rory paused. "You're the warning," I continued, "the lesson, and I'm the one who carries it forward. You need me to tell people what happens when they break the rules." The thing tilted its head, considering. Behind it, the horizon brightened, pink and gold spreading across the sky. "Very well," Rory said. "You may survive, but you'll carry this with you forever. Every new year you'll remember. Every midnight you'll count down with fear in your heart. And if you ever open your door to the wrong one." It touched my face. Its finger was ice cold. "I'll be waiting." 6 a.m. Sunrise. The things vanished. All of them. One moment they were there. The next the square was empty. The surviving villagers emerged slowly, cautiously. 23 households remained out of 39. 16 families gone, consumed by the first footer they hadn't properly prepared for. Moira found me in my room, surrounded by debris. She said nothing. Just helped me pack. I left Braywick that morning, took the first ferry off the island. I have the recordings, hours of footage, everything documented. But I'll never publish it. Because Rory was right. I carry this with me. Every New Year's Eve, I lock my doors, I prepare, I make sure I'm the right kind of first footer for myself, and I never, ever open the door after midnight. Not until I'm absolutely certain who's on the other side. The census records show Braywick's population at 323 now, but I've done the math. Accounting for natural deaths, births, and people who moved away, there should be more. Which means the things are still taking, still collecting, still waiting for the next person who thinks the rules don't matter. Is it midnight where you are? Are you alone? Have you locked your doors? Good. Keep them locked, and whatever you do, don't answer if someone knocks, unless you're absolutely certain you know who it is.